Before we begin this sacred inquiry, I invite you to settle into your physical form. Feel the weight of your body, the rhythm of your breath, the subtle sensations that arise as you prepare to venture into this territory of truth. Let your awareness drop from your mind into your heart space, for it is here that the deepest recognition begins. Pause for a moment. Allow yourself to sink into the vast, quiet space of honest self-reflection. Take a breath and think deeply about how many times over the last week, month, or even year, others have poured their energy, time, attention, and care into your life. These are not trivial things. These are life force exchanges, silent, invisible threads woven into your being. Feel the weight of all that you've received, not just the material things, but the emotional and spiritual nourishment that has sustained you, carried you through times you might not even remember clearly. Have you ever truly stopped to let the gravity of that sink in? Have you acknowledged how much you've been held, protected, and supported by others? If you haven't, now is the time to truly feel into it. As you catalog these exchanges, notice where in your body you feel resistance arising. Perhaps there's a tightness in your chest as you recognize how much you've received, or a constriction in your throat as you face the truth of your taking. These bodily sensations are gateways to deeper understanding, ancient wisdom encoded in your very cells. This is more than just cataloging experiences. It's about awakening to the vast, sacred web of interconnection that has shaped your existence in ways you may have overlooked. The people in your life, the ones who have shown up, who have extended their hand or heart, who have carried you when you couldn't carry yourself. Think about the moments when someone set aside their own needs to be there for you, without hesitation. These are not random acts. They are sacred exchanges of life force. When we fail to recognize how much others are pouring into us, we are blind to the true nature of what keeps us alive and whole. Feel into the archetypal wounds that live in your lineage, the patterns of giving and taking that have been passed down through generations. Your personal journey of awakening to these dynamics is part of a larger healing that reaches back through your ancestral line and forward into the future you're creating. Now, let's turn our attention to the givers in your life, the silent warriors who consistently show up, the ones who are always there, extending their energy, time, and care, often without expecting anything in return. Have you ever stopped to think about the invisible weight they carry? Their needs buried beneath a lifetime of responsibility and care for others? Many of them, perhaps unknowingly, have been conditioned to believe that their worth is tied to their ability to give. They've been trained to give without rest, because they've internalized the belief that their value is linked to what they can provide, what they can solve, what they can carry for others. As you reflect on the givers in your life, notice the shadows that accompany their giving. Behind their generosity might lie a deep fear, perhaps of abandonment, of worthlessness, of being seen only for what they can provide. Their giving may be both a gift and a shield, a way to avoid confronting their own vulnerability. Take a moment to ask yourself, how often do you truly recognize the depth of what others are giving to you? This is not about feeling guilty for what you've received, but about recognizing it fully and allowing that recognition to transform you. Can you feel the true weight of their sacrifice, their energy, their care? Let your awareness sink into the somatic imprint of your patterns. Where do you hold the habit of taking in your body? Is there a constant hunger in your belly, an emptiness in your heart that demands to be filled? Or, if you are a giver, perhaps you carry the weight of giving in your shoulders, the burden of others' needs pressing down upon your spine. The cycle of giving without receiving in return often leads to self-abandonment. Givers may fear setting boundaries, thinking that if they stop giving, they will lose their sense of worth. But this constant giving without receiving buries their own needs under layers of expectation and duty. How much longer will they go on like this before they break? And how many of us do the same, giving, 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 until we lose sight of who we are beneath the layers? Consider how these patterns of giving and taking echo through the collective consciousness. We all carry pieces of a larger story, one of scarcity, separation, and the struggle to remember our inherent wholeness. Your work with these dynamics contributes to a larger healing process that ripples out far beyond your individual relationships. We live in a world that celebrates taking more than it celebrates giving, where most of us walk around with a sense of entitlement without even realizing it. We've been conditioned to measure success by what we acquire, whether material goods, validation, or emotional support. But what happens when we step outside that conditioning and finally see the imbalances we've been operating within? When we awaken to the fact that we're caught in a cycle of endless taking without reciprocating, eroding the fabric of our relationships. Feel into the cellular memory of lack that drives the impulse to take, to hoard, to grasp. This is not just your pattern. It is the collective pattern of humanity, passed down through generations of perceived scarcity and survival fear. By bringing consciousness to this pattern in yourself, you participate in the healing of this collective wound. The truth is, radical honesty is the first step. If you've been taking without awareness, sit with the discomfort of this recognition. Feel the fear that drives the need to always receive, to always take without giving back. What are you really hungry for? What void are you trying to fill? Perhaps it's not about material things at all. Maybe it's emotional nourishment you've never allowed yourself to fully receive. Maybe you've never truly let someone in to fill that space because you're afraid of what it might mean to be vulnerable, to be held, to be seen as valuable just as you are. And for those of you who are givers, the challenge is no less profound. Can you acknowledge that your giving might sometimes be a way to ensure that you are needed? Can you admit that your identity might be wrapped up in your role as the strong one, the one who holds everything together? What if the need to always be the one who gives is keeping you from experiencing the depth of human connection? What if that very cycle of giving is a defense mechanism, a way to avoid confronting your own vulnerability? What happens when you start to receive, to truly receive, with no strings attached? The truth is, we all have a part to play in this cycle of giving and taking. And when we fail to recognize what others are giving us, we create imbalance. People who give endlessly without recognition will begin to feel drained, unappreciated, and eventually resentful. The cracks will show, even in the most loving relationships. And this is where the real transformation begins, because this is where healing can happen. Notice the places in your body that contract when you contemplate receiving fully. These contractions hold ancient wisdom about where you've learned it wasn't safe to be vulnerable, to need, to depend on others. Your body carries the story of every time you chose taking over receiving, grasping over allowing. The practice of conscious receiving is as vital as giving. To receive with full awareness is to honor the giver's sacrifice, their vulnerability, and to open ourselves to the experience of being supported, of being cared for. What happens when you allow yourself to truly receive without feeling like you have to pay it back instantly? What happens when you allow yourself to be held by others, to accept their love, care, and energy without resistance? For those of you who are chronic givers, learning to receive is perhaps the most profound act of self-love you can engage in. It means understanding that your worth is not tied to your ability to always give. It means allowing yourself to be human, to feel the full spectrum of life, and to stop hiding behind the facade of strength. This journey requires grieving the belief that you had to earn love through endless giving, grieving the parts of you that were buried beneath layers of expectation. The ultimate goal is to move beyond the binary of giver and taker into a conscious exchange. Here we honor both the giving and the receiving aspects of our nature. No longer must we choose between giving and taking, because both are integral to our human experience. It's in the flow of this exchange, this sacred dance, that we find true healing, true transformation, and true connection. Take a moment now to feel into your own relationship with giving and receiving. Feel into the patterns that arise, the resistance, the discomfort. What needs to shift? What parts of you need to be healed? This is your moment of profound transformation. What would it take for you to begin showing up differently, with greater awareness, with greater intention in this sacred dance of giving and receiving? As we close this sacred exploration, bring your awareness to the subtle energetic field around your body. Feel how it pulses with the possibility of transformation. Your patterns of giving and taking are not fixed. They are energy in motion. waiting to be reshaped by your conscious awareness. Let yourself feel the profound potential that lives in this moment of recognition. In this space between who you have been and who you are becoming, rest in the knowledge that every moment of awareness is an invitation to shift these ancient patterns. Your body knows the way toward balance. Trust the wisdom that lives in your cells, in your bones, in the very marrow of your being, knowing that this is not just personal healing work, it is your contribution to the evolution of human consciousness itself. Let's pause here and reflect honestly. Are you tired of watching relationships crumble under the weight of unspoken resentment, of sensing that people are slowly pulling away, their energy no longer freely flowing toward you? Do you notice how conversations become strained, how genuine connection seems to slip through your fingers like sand? Perhaps you've felt the subtle shift when someone who once lit up in your presence now seems to dim, their enthusiasm replaced by a careful guardedness. Have you recognized the pattern of relationships that start with intense connection but inevitably fade into disappointment and distance? How many times have you been left wondering why people eventually withdraw their energy, their time, their hearts from you? Why does it feel like every relationship reaches a point where others start setting firm boundaries, pulling back, protecting themselves from the constant drain? Do you see how your need to constantly receive attention, validation, support, might be suffocating the very connections you yearn to deepen? How many beautiful possibilities have withered because you couldn't break free from this pattern of unconscious consumption? And in your quietest moments, don't you feel the exhaustion of it all? The endless cycle of seeking external validation, of needing others to fill your inner void, of watching relationships dissolve into overwhelm and retreat? Aren't you ready to break free from this pattern that keeps you eternally hungry, eternally searching, eternally unfulfilled? This moment, right now, holds the potential for profound change. The very recognition of these patterns is the doorway to transformation. And if you find yourself yearning to explore these patterns more deeply, to understand the sacred territory of giving and receiving in your own life, I'm here to guide you through this profound journey of transformation. Just know that this isn't surface-level work. It's about diving into the depths of your being, uncovering the ancient patterns that have shaped your relationship with exchange, and finding your way to authentic balance. I offer a sacred container for this deep exploration, where we can gently but courageously unravel the complexities of your giving and taking patterns. Through our work together, you'll discover not just awareness, but practical ways to shift these dynamics and create more conscious relationships. If you're ready to heal the wounds that drive unconscious patterns and to step into a more authentic way of being, please reach out. This journey isn't meant to be walked alone, and sometimes the most profound act of giving to yourself is allowing yourself to receive support. Thank you for watching, sharing, and subscribing. This is Ayla, signing off.